Good afternoon, dear participants. Selamat datang kepada seluruh peserta. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to our webinar FSSC 2000 version 7. My name is Kiran and I will be your moderator for this session today. Before we begin, please allow me to share some webinar guidelines. Kindly turn on your camera if possible. Keep your microphone muted during the sessions and feel free to send your questions in the chat box. Certificates will be given only to those who complete the attendance form provided at the end of the event. To start today's sessions, I would likely to introduce SAFF Suprema Utama, also known as SAFF Solutions. SAFF is a consulting, training, and assessment institutions based in Jakarta. We provide professional services related to management systems, particularly in food safety and quality management. Our services includes consultations and training for various international standards such as FSSC 22000, ISO 22000, HACCP, GMP, and several other management system standards. Through today's webinar, we hope to support participants in gaining a better understanding of FSSC 22000 version 7 and its implementations in the food industry. As additional information, we are pleased to share that approximately 650 participants have registered for today's webinar, coming not only from across Indonesia, but also from several other countries. The majority of our participants are professionals and employees from various industries. This remarkable enthusiasm reflects the growing interest and strong commitment toward the topic we will be discussing together today. Before we move on to the main sessions, allow me to briefly walk you through today's agenda. We will begin with the opening session, followed by welcome remarks from Mr. Gilang Anugrah Putra. After that, we will continue with the main presentation sessions delivered by our speaker, Mr. Darshane. We will share insight regarding FSSC 20000 version 7. Once the presentation session is completed, we will have a Q&A session where participants are welcome to ask questions and engage in discussions. Finally, the webinar will conclude with the closing sessions. We hope today's sessions will be insightful and beneficial for all participants. Distinguished participants, it is now my honor to introduce today's food safety quality consultant and trainer at PT SAFF Suprema Utama, Mr. Gilang Anugrah Putra. Mr. Gilang is a food safety quality consultant and trainer at PT SAFF Suprema Utama since 2018 and also serves as an associate food safety trainer for Layat Register and Bureau Veritas. He holds a Master of Food Safety from Bogor Agricultural University IPB, has completed the Professional Engineering program at the Institute Teknologi Indonesia, and earned his bachelor's degree in food technology from IPB. In addition, Mr. Gilang also holds numerous professional certifications, including FSSC 22000 version 6 Lead Auditor, BRCGS Food Safety Issue 9 Lead Auditor, ISO 22000-2018 Lead Auditor IRCA, PCQI Preventive Controls Qualified Individual FDA, and ISO 9001-2015 Lead Auditor IRCA. With this strong academic background and internationally recognized certifications, Mr. Gilang is undoubtedly a leading expert in food safety management systems. As for his extensive work experience across various companies and industries, I will kindly invite Mr. Gilang himself to share more details with all of us. And for those of you who would like to stay connected and learn more from him, please don't hesitate to connect with Mr. Gilang Anugrah Putra on LinkedIn. Please join me in warmly welcoming Mr. Gilang Anugrah Putra.
Saya coba share dulu ya. Sudah full screen belum? Kira.
Sudah, Pak. Ya, sudah.
Sudah ya? Oke. Saya mulai saja ya, Bapak dan Ibu. Saya akan campur nanti dengan bahasa Inggris sebagian besar. Selamat sore semuanya. Good afternoon everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih atas kehadiran Bapak dan Ibu semua ya.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Dari seluruh peserta yang sudah terdaftar,
Waalaikumsalam
hampir
warahmatullahi
hampir 600 register partisipan, tapi yang hadir tentu biasanya pada saat webinar tidak sebanyak itu, tapi semoga dapat memberikan suasana yang baik gitu ya Bapak Ibu. And also thank you for joining us this afternoon. I hope you are all doing well. My name is Gilang Anugrah Putra. I am a food safety consultant from SAFF Solution in Indonesia, and today we have an important session about FSSC 22,000 version 7, the latest update that was just released 2 weeks ago on 1st of May 2026. This is very new, and we are really glad to have you all here, including me, to discuss it together about FSSC 22,000 version 7. Okay, welcome to everyone on our webinar introducing FSSC 22,000 version 7. This webinar will run for about 75 minutes, and most of the session will be presented by Dr. Darshane from Foundation FSSC, who will share all the important updates about version 7. And at the end, we have a short time for Q&A. Please feel free to prepare your question as we go along. Just a quick note, today webinar is collaboration between SAFF Solution and Foundation FSSC. And SAFF Solution is your local consulting partner here in Indonesia, and Foundation FSSC is the global organization that manages the certification scheme FSSC 22,000. This means you will get information directly from the source plus practical insight. And also we have had the privilege of conducting several activities in partnership with the FSSC Foundation, and this webinar is our fourth collaboration together, and we would like to take this opportunity to once again thank the FSSC Foundation for their trust. Let me tell you briefly about SAFF Solution. We are consulting and training company specializing in food safety management system. We work with many types of organization across Indonesia, food manufacturing, food packaging, and other food-related organization. What we do is help companies implement effective system like FSSC 20000, ISO 22000, BRCGS, and also halal certification. And that's why understanding updates like FSSC version 7 is important. How SAFF support your FSSC journey, especially in Indonesia? From our experience working with many companies, we understand that implementing FSSC is a journey. That's where we come in. We provide practical support through gap analysis, customized training, implementation support during certification preparation, and also ongoing updates through session like this in collaboration with Foundation FSSC. Our goal is to ensure that when version 7 is implemented, your organization is fully prepared. This is Indonesian food industry ecosystem based on database. Let's look at Indonesian for a moment. Indonesia food ecosystem is huge. 7,498 large and medium food manufacturing, 1.7 million small and medium enterprise food manufacturing, and also 5.28 million food service business, and that's almost 7 million. This data show how important food safety is for our country in Indonesia, and the industry continues grow. Customer expectations are increasing. Export requirements are becoming stricter. Supply chain are getting more complex. More and more companies now need internationally recognized certification like FSSC 22,000. Let me explain the global certification landscape for the FSSC. About 41,000 industry already certified with FSSC, and in Indonesia, 732 company already certified with the FSSC 2000. Indonesia represent a significant share of FSSC 2000 and reflecting growing commitment to food safety management and international market requirements. And this is our my last slide. Yeah. Why FSSC 2000 version 7 matters? The first is a timely industry update. On 1st of May 2026, the FSSC officially released the version 7, published less than 2 weeks ago, and our webinar is one of the early industry session in Indonesia discussing version 7. This update is important, reflect evolving food safety challenge and industry expectation, support adaptation to emerging food safety risks, sustainability and digitalization, and alignment with update from ISO and GFSI framework. And also, 1 month again, we connected to World Food Safety Day 2026 on 7 June. We have for this year theme from burden to solution, safe food everywhere. Moving from food safety challenge to practical solution, and FSSC 2000 version 7 can strengthening our food safety management system to support safe food everywhere. And this is the requirement from FSSC for FSSC 2000 version 7 structure. The first is ISO 22000 Food Safety Management System requirements, and still 2018. The second is PRP, and we are using the updated from the ISO, that is ISO 22002 series, the specific prerequisite programs based on the ISO 22002. And the last is FSSC 20000 additional requirement. And everyone, I think I have covered the background for this webinar and Indonesia food industry landscape and also global context and why FSSC 20000 version 7 is important. Now I would like to hand over to Kiren, our moderator for today's session. Kiren will guide us through the rest of the program and introduce our main speaker, Dr. TV Darshane. Enjoy the webinar. Selamat mengikuti Bapak dan Ibu webinar kali ini. Semoga bermanfaat. Kiren, over to you. Thank you, everyone.
Oke, terima kasih banyak Pak Gilang atas sambutannya. Thank you Pak Gilang for the insightful remarks. Now, I would like to proceed to the next agenda. We are now moving to the core of today's webinar, which is the presentation sessions. But before we begin, allow me to briefly introduce the topic. FSSC 22000 or Food Safety System Certifications 22000 is one of the most widely recognized international certification scheme for food safety management. It is based on ISO 22000 and integrates sector-specific technical specifications and additional requirements to ensure the highest standards of food safety along the entire supply chain. This certification is not only globally accepted, but also helps organizations demonstrate their commitment to producing safe, high-quality food products while meeting regulatory and customer requirements. With this short overview, it is now my great pleasure to introduce our speaker, Mr. Dnyanesh V. Mr. Darshane earned his PhD degree in analytical chemistry from the Institute of Science LIS and an MBA from Gojita Business School, USA. He also holds certifications in nutrition science from Mumbai as well as from the Stanford Center for Health Education, USA. Currently, he serves as FSSC's representative for the South Asia and Oceania regions. Beyond that, he is also a board member and advisor in various international nonprofit organizations such as GFSI, SPRI, SIWW, and ISBT. Since 2018, he has has also been working as an independent consultant. With such a strong academic foundation, extensive international experience, and deep involvement in global food safety initiatives, Mr. Darshan is truly a leading figure in this field. For his complete professional journey and experiences, I will kindly invite Mr. Darshan himself to share more with us. And just like our previous speaker, you may also connect with Mr. Dnyanesh V on LinkedIn to continue building a professional network and exchange knowledge. But before we begin, I would also like to inform all of participants that if you have any questions during the presentations, please feel free to send them through the chat box. All questions or maybe some of the questions will be addressed during the Q&A sessions after the presentations. Now, please join me in warmly welcoming Mr. Dnyanesh V. Good afternoon, Mr. Darshan. Are you there already?
Yes.
Okay.
You will be
Thank
seeing
you.
my screen now.
Yes, we can see your screen. Time is yours.
All right, so good afternoon to everyone in Indonesia. Selamat datang. What we are going to do today is we're going to go through the changes in version 7. But before going into the details, there will be 5 minutes introduction to FSSC for those who are new to FSSC. And as Mr. Gilang has mentioned, there is a vast food industry in Indonesia. However, we have been able to capture a very small percentage of them in this FSSC certification. So our efforts have been to support not only the large scale industry, but we also have a special program for medium and small scale enterprises. That's called as a development program. So I will not go through in detail on that, but maybe we will organize a separate session for those people going forward. So once again, welcome. And so I think it's going to be about 45-minute session today, and we are just going to have a quick introduction to FSSC for those who are new. What has changed in version 7 between 6 and 7, the reasons for change, and a little bit more details about the change. What are the changes and how do you interpret them? One thing I am going to request to all of you is that if you go to the FSSC website, you will be able to download the version 7. And this will help you navigate through the process. And we'll also discuss the upgrade process, what happens between now and 2027 and 2028. Okay, so hang on tight. So we all know that FSSC is based on very strong, robust framework and is very effective food safety management system. It uses the existing ISO standard, which is also called as the harmonized structure. And the interesting thing is that many organizations, those who go for FSSC 22000, they can get a dual certificate in case they're interested. They can also get a certificate for ISO 22000. So this is the beauty of FSSC 20, but you need to request that to your certification organization, to the certification bodies. Okay, so it is science-based, developed by international experts, and hence it is reliable. GFSI is recognized globally, and you've seen that more than 41,000 certificates now issued, which makes it one of the most leading certification agency in terms of food safety. It has a very robust integrity program. We're going to touch base on that for audits and also managing the certification process. And it has more details provided in subsections related to specific PRPs, okay? And they're included for guidance, this thing. So, and it covers multiple sectors in the food chain, except for the farming at this stage. So this just shows some infographic in terms of what areas you can get certified on. That is retail, wholesale, trading, brokerage, catering, transport, and storage, food manufacturing, food packaging, manufacturing, and feed and animal food production. So, as you said, that there are more than 170 partners worldwide, certification bodies that gives access to you to the nearest certification body in your region. Now FSSC has more than 80 team members, this thing. It has also launched a development program sometime back. It's picking up in a big way in Latin America now. I hope that we are able to provide support to the medium and small enterprises in Indonesia and Asian countries in the near future. There is the International Alliance Network, GFSI, UNIDO, and many others. We also have a global representation. I'm going to show you that who are the people. But in case you are in Indonesia and South Asia or Australasia, I am your contact in case you have any questions. So this is the bit of a history of what's going on in terms of the changes which has happened. So you can see that not necessarily very frequently the changes happen. And we're also going to go through that why these changes are occurring and how FSSC is providing sufficient time for transitioning to the new versions. So I think Gilang presented this one. So basically FSSC 22,000 scheme requirements are based on additional requirements which are created based on the inputs received from the stakeholders, the 40,000 audits which are going on an annual basis. And there's something called as board of stakeholder decision list. That means the board members provide inputs saying that what should get added into the scheme besides having 22,000. Now in this case, you can see it's 100% aligned with ISO 22,000, and there is a change which has happened now. This is sector-specific PRPs have been introduced. Now in the past it was PAS 221. Now this is one of the major change which has happened in the FSSC. So it has an ongoing monitoring system for our licensed CBs to ensure compliance with the scheme requirements, leading to reliable audits and consistency in certification. And we'll also discuss that what FSSC is doing going forward to strengthen this space. Okay, together with FSSC, independent and non-profit status, the Effective Integrity Program provides trust and confidence. And there are integrity program officers placed throughout the world, those who actively participate in the third-party audits. And this has already reduced the demand for the second-party audits now. Not going to go through everything, but there's very strong intellectual integrity program coverage here. Office assessments for certification bodies, desk reviews, license approval, maintenance, harmonization webinars with certification bodies, compliance breaches if there are any between the CBs and the audits, exception management, sanctions. And also there is a customer support. In case you have any specific question, you could go online, drop a message, and you will be responded. Brand protection, any complaints and serious events are tackled immediately. And then performance evaluation onboarding program for partner. That means whenever the new CB gets onboarded, there is a strong partner performance program, which also ensures that how the CBs are working basically on an ongoing basis. This is the team. You can see you're going to get a copy of the presentation, so you will know. So looking at the FSSC benefits, okay. Not going to go through every detail of this, But basically it says it has a management system approach, PDCA, based on ISO 22000. It has harmonized structure, possible to integrate with other management systems in case you are implementing other management system for environment, safety, and other things. It's science-based, based on HACCP principles of Codex Alimentarius, which is aligned with international standards, and high level of acceptance, focus on continuous improvement of the FSMS. It follows a risk-based approach and covers multiple sectors in food supply chain. So what are the benefits? GFSI is recognized certification scheme, driver for global market acceptance. Majority of the retailers and large corporations have accepted this thing, and also since it is GFSI recognized, has a certain place with the customers. Certification program of choice for many global food companies. Visibility through FSSC public register of certified organizations. So if an organization says that I'm certified, you can verify it with the database going on just FSSC website. Governance structure includes robust integrity program to build the trust and collaboration with major international associations. One of the important things is agility through leveraging additional requirements as needed, addressing instant food safety issues. Okay, and we are going to discuss this bit more as we go through the presentation. Here are some other benefits aligned with 17021 management system and ISO 22003-1 for food safety management system. It has an accreditation, certification from ISO IEC, and fully includes 22000, ISO 22002 new PRPs series, and FSS 22000 additional requirements. It is based on 3-year certification cycle, but every year there will be an audit, but certification happens on 3-year basis. FSSC is relatively low annual certification fee due to non-profit character of the foundation. Now we are going to get into the critical changes. So thank you for allowing me to give you a little bit information about FSSC. Let's jump into this space. Okay. So here, what you are seeing is that the main drivers for the change for version 6 to 7 are incorporating the new ISO 22002 series for PRPs mainly. So ISO decided that they realized that you cannot use the same PRPs for all the sectors because food supply chains are different for many of them, and hence they created a normative document in the scheme, and we followed that and adopted into FSSC 22000. So alignment of scheme with GFSI benchmarking requirements also has been done in this version of 24, strengthening requirements to help organizations meet the sustainable development goals. Because FSSC had introduced SDGs, some of the elements, some of the goals of SDG, but there was no clarity in terms of how do you set the goals, how do you measure the goals, how do you report those sustainable development goals in case your organization decides to make an impact in this space. It's providing a more defined structure for the division of food chain subcategories. Now we are going to go through the so for the first time they have introduced subcategories and also subcategories. We are going to go through that. Okay, we have also made some editorial changes and amendments as a part of continuous improvement process. Now you can see that one of the bigger changes include introduction to the 22002. It defines and standardizes the requirements for establishing and implementing and maintaining the PRPs throughout the food, feed, and packaging supply chain. Now its purpose is to assist in controlling food safety hazards in conjunction with ISO 22000-2018 clause 8.2. And as a reminder, PRPs include topics as facility construction and design, hygiene and cleaning, disinfection, pest control, waste management, and maintenance. So some of them were not very much elaborate, but now they are in the newer version. So what is the impact of this change on the organizations? ISO 22000 series of standards, which was published in July 25, and now it replaces the provision of ISO TS 22002 for FSSC 22000 certified organizations to be included as a part of version 7. One common PRP standard with additional sector-specific parts have been introduced now. This simplifies the implementation for multi-sector organizations, typically meaning more standardized PRP structures and clear audit expectations. For some sectors, it could result in increased or more defined requirements based on the Part 100. Now, we are going to look at what Part 100 is. So you can see here that the PRPs have been now segmented. The new ISO PRP structure is designed to harmonize the PRPs in Part 100, which applies to all the sectors. That means the one on the top is the common one for all the sectors, thereby reducing the duplication across sector standards and making it easier for organizations to apply consistent PRP framework. For example, if you look at catering company, then the Part 100, which is on the top, and then the ISO 22002, which is just below that, for catering supply will be applicable. Likewise, for an organization that does food and packaging manufacturing, then the Part 100 followed by ISO 22001 and ISO 22004. So the one on the left and then one on the fourth. So because it is also doing manufacturing and food packaging. So now they will be using all the three, ISO 22100 and then Part 1 and Part 4. Now you can see that there is no Part 3, correct? So the sector PRP for farming is still under development, and farming is also not included at this stage with the scope of FSSC scheme. Also new to the series is 22007, which is at the bottom, the right bottom, retail and wholesale. So this is a new PRP standard, and this replaces PAS 221 that applies to the version 6 now. So let's take an example of how does it impact the change. So when we look further into the impact of the change, you'll notice that the clause numbers have changed, okay? Meaning that organizations will have to adopt their PRPs, including the documentation, to align with the new structures. Part 100 plus the relevant sectors. And as mentioned before, the Part 100 contains those PRPs requirements that are common across all the sectors. Now, these sector-specific parts then only include those requirements over and above what is defined in the Part 1. So that part is very clear now. So the 100 part is common for everyone. For example, then we look at this extract from the ISO 22002 Part 1, you will see that for the clause 4.2, which is on the environment, only the requirement as defined in the Part 100 apply. However, when we look at the clause 4.3 on the construction and layout, you will see that the requirements in Part 100 apply, plus the additional requirements on drains and drainage directions have been added in this PRP by the ISO system. Now, this is not confusing, but once you are able to download the entire document, you will see that there are certain clauses which have been renamed or their serial numbers have changed in the new version of ISO 22002 100 to 25. So you will see that In order to demonstrate these clause numbers have changed, an example is displayed in this one. That for food manufacturing versus the new ISO 22001 part 100, clauses 4, 5, and 6, which is on the left hand side, you can see nothing has changed in that. Okay, there is the same numbering system with a slight change in the wording, which is there. Now on clause number 7 on waste disposal is now the clause number 8, and that includes FLW management and recycling requirements. And likewise, clause number 8 and 9 now shifts to clause 9 and 10. That means there is going to be some rework in terms of your documentation and the management system. So whoever is the coordinator will have to go through all these changes and rectify those changes before they go for the new certification. Let's take another example. Okay. As mentioned above, the part 100 only includes those PRP requirements that are applicable across all the sectors. So when we look at the clause 14, now I want you to take this thing. In the previous ISO TS 22001 on the rework, you will see that it is not included in the part 100 now. Okay. You can see the blank out there. As it is not applicable to all sectors, but it is then included in the relevant sector part. For example, under clause 17 in ISO 22002 part 1. And in some cases, requirements were also removed from the example. For example, product recall procedure that was included in 22002 part 1 under clause 15 is no longer included in the new PRP standard. Okay, so this has been a change and is no longer included in the PRP standard because the requirement is already covered in the main section of 22000 clause 8.9.5, which is given there. Okay, so I think you'll have to go through these details, and when you will download the version 6 and version 7, these changes have been highlighted in a different color to make it easier for you to see that what changes have happened for more practical purpose. So let's look at some of the main changes. We are going to focus on the part 2 of the scheme, okay, which addresses the requirements for organizations to be audited and some key points from the other parts of the scheme. However, for full overview, the main additions in the scheme refer to the main changes of the document, which I mentioned to you earlier. And additional information, you will find it, the main changes versus the original one in the highlighted version, which is colored in red when you go and download it. If you have difficulty, just let us know. I'll pass on the copy to Gilang. He can share it with you. So let's take a look at the scheme overview. Now, there is no change in the entire scheme structure. You'll see that the parts which were there, which are the 5 parts, 2 appendices, and 5 annexes, they all remain the same. So from FSSC standpoint, there's no major structural change happening here. Now you're going to see that these are the scopes of the certification. No changes to the scopes. Coverage have occurred between version 6 and 7. And then the subcategories are still displayed on this slide, okay, remain the same. Covering industry sectors from pre-processing and process handling and of plant products such as pack houses to production of biochemicals such as food additives and food supplements in this thing. And this is a very elaborative list. You can see again here that farming is not included here. So let's look at some of the main changes. Within a table 1, which details the food chain categories and sectors covered by the scheme. The normative documents applicable to each food chain category has been updated to align with the inclusion of 22,000 series. For the PRPs, replacing the previous technical specification of PAS standard 221, and so that there is a part of scheme where you as a certified organization or organization seeking certification can look into further detail on upcoming slides. Okay. In addition to this, we made editorial changes, as I mentioned, and both are in part 1 of the scope. And once you download the document, you'll be able to see them. So now there is something totally new which has happened here. Okay. For some of the sectors or categories, new subcategories have been introduced now. They have been added to ensure that the auditors have the necessary competency to the subcategory level relevant to the scope of the certified organization to ensure that the robust audit can be delivered by an auditor with the necessary process knowledge. Okay. Now the certification bodies have been required to define these themselves in the past. However, to ensure consistency and harmonization between the certification bodies, we have introduced formally defined subcategories within the scheme. We will not spend much time going through them in detail during this webinar, as these subcategories apply only to CB's management of auditor competency. That means the CBs will have to work to make sure that their auditors have competency when they go into these operations which have the where the subcategories have been defined. Now these subcategories apply to CB's management of auditor competency mostly and do not apply to certificates. So when you are issued a certificate, subcategory will not be mentioned on that. Okay. Now, for example, the C0, which is animal primary conversion as slaughterhouses, has been broken into 2. C1, processing perishable animal products, is broken into 4. And then C4, processing of ambient stable products, has been defined to 6 subcategories now. And here you can see the additional examples that in case of I, there have been additional 5 categories, subcategories, in K, 2 additional subcategories. So these subcategories have been further defined. They have a broad range of products with different technologies. You can see here that the auditor who may have a knowledge on plastic may be able to do audit for the large plastic companies, but if he doesn't have expertise in metal and glass, they will have to obtain certain level of expertise before these auditors go and assess these plants. So there will be a lot of training needs in developing auditor competencies and skills to broaden their sectorial knowledge here. So what are the requirements for the organization now? So part 2 of the scheme describes the scheme requirements against the license certification bodies that will audit the food safety management system of the organization to achieve and maintain the certification for FSSC 22,000. Now, these sections define organizations are audited against 22,000 2018 for FSMS requirements and 22,002 X 225 series on PRPs and FSSC 22,000 additional requirements along with the BOS decisions. Now we are going to go through what are the BOS decisions which are included. and scheme interpretation articles published by the foundation. Many times there is a question that are the interpretation articles auditable? The answer is no. These are basically provided for as a guidance documents and are not necessarily auditable. Now, within version 7, as already mentioned in detail earlier, the new ISO standard for PRPs has been included. We also clarified that this part of scheme that any amendments to the ISO 22000 issued by ISO are covered in the scheme and therefore are 100% auditable. So we're going to go through a couple of examples quickly. Here is the example on main changes. Firstly, we have incorporated V6 BOS decision number 4 from March 2024 into version 7. This included updating the requirements on laboratory analysis used for verification and validation of parameters critical to food safety, which included that the analysis shall be performed in accordance with the applicable requirements for ISO IC 17025, for which the FSCC had already published a scheme interpretation article in June 2024, which provides further clarification on laboratory analysis requirements and their implementation. If you are not familiar with this scheme interpretation article or the one on quality control, we highly recommend you download that and from the FSSC website, as they are mandatory already in version 6. Okay. So here is another major change you will see, that FSSC 22000 additional requirements are linked to the GFSI benchmarking requirements of 2024. Now, let's start off with update made from the specification required and included under 2.5.1. Organizations need to ensure microbiological, physical, chemical, and allergenic specifications used for safety purposes are based on appropriate scientific principles when the relevant legislation is absent. So this is a disclaimer here when country's legislation does not cover this, and such as on scientific results and international standards. So this part is very critical. Majority of the countries have them, but if it is not, then they need to follow. So this is another additional requirement based on GFSI benchmarking requirements updates. We have updated the requirements on food defense and food fraud mitigation to ensure that the assessments and plans are developed and maintained by personnel who have the appropriate knowledge and competency to undertake them. So this is one of the major changes. There's another GFSI requirement on food safety culture. So basically, food safety and quality culture, the senior management shall provide sufficient resources to maintain positive food safety and quality culture, and a demonstrable commitment from all personnel to the production and safe handling of the food shall be available. Now, you can see here that commitment from all personnel, not just the people from the manufacturing. And as all personnel shall be committed to the production and safe handling of the food. That means throughout the supply chain. There's another change, which is FSSC additional requirements. As we mentioned that about food defense and fraud mitigation requirements due to inclusion of ISO 22000 new version under PRP 100. There's an updated clause reference to align with the new ISO 22002X series, PRPs and 221. So these have been included in the part 2 of the scheme of the document. Part 2, another main changes what you are seeing is that there is a requirement for artwork management and print control requirements, and also management of allergens. So let's spend a little time on this. So the artwork management and print control requirements are now applies to all organizations that print labels and or materials, and no longer only applies to category I organizations, as many food and feed manufacturers also print their own materials in-house and therefore also need to have a control over these processes. So if you have an in-house print house, then this is an additional requirement for you. With regards to allergen management, we have updated the following requirements to apply for pet food products now as well, and not only the animal feed products. So it now indicates that wherever there is no allergen related legislation for that particular country of sale pertaining to animal feed or pet food, this scheme or this section of the scheme will be applicable. So unless a claim, sorry, my error here. Basically, so if there is no allergen related legislation for the country of sale pertaining to the animal feed or pet food, this section of scheme requirements may be indicated as not applicable. Okay, unless a claim is made on the packaging related to the allergen status that has been made on animal feed or pet food. So allergenicity claims such as hypoallergenic or analgenic claims, in which case requirements will still apply. So if you are claiming that, then it will be applicable. So another main change is in PRP verifications. You can see that additional requirements which relate to the organization needing to establish, implement, and maintain routine site inspections, PRP checks. This requirement now also applies to catering and food service industry and the retail wholesale sector. So overall, this requirement now only does not apply to FSMS F2 for trading and brokering as a sector undertakes administration activities only. There's another change, product design and development, and in this one, additional requirement linked to the shelf life validation. Ongoing verification is required. So in the past, many organizations used to do shelf life verification once and record it, but now this requires that it should be done on a periodic basis. And this requirement has been clarified in subcategories B, 3, C, D, and K. And this is a requirement that indicates the need for conduct production and shelf life trials to make sure that the product formulation and processes are capable of producing safe product and meet the customer requirements, that a process for an ongoing shelf life verification shall be in place at the frequency based on the risk. So this is another major change which has happened. Now let's move on to the next change in terms of traceability and food loss and waste. So the additional requirement 2.5.14 was previously about the health status of personnel linked to the food category D, animal feed production. However, this has been removed from the additional requirements, and it is now sufficiently addressed within the new PRP under 100. And again, this requirement is still covered within the scheme, just under a different normative document. So the V6 of the BOS Decision 3 from March 2024 has now been added into version 7 as additional requirement as 2.5.14 relating to the organization needing to establish, implement, maintain, and appropriate procedure systems to ensure the traceability of all the edible parts of carcass is maintained until the carcass is deemed fit for human consumption. A reminder that This was added under B6 BOS decision list to meet GFSI benchmarking requirements. Then regarding the additional requirement on food loss and waste, we have now clarified the food loss waste system objectives should be supported by clear measurable goals and targets with defined timelines, and this is to further support the reduction of food loss and waste and continued contribution to the sustainable development goal. So they have given a bit more of a structure to it rather than keeping a loose commentary about it. So this is about multi-site certification under 2.5.18. We have now indicated that these requirements now also apply to FSMS B3 category for pre-process handling of plant products, pack houses. When a B3 organization undergoes multi-site certification, as this food chain category may now also undergo multiple certification under version 7 of it. New requirements on product design and development. So see, this is the very interesting one. We are pleased to announce that we have incorporated a new requirement under product design and development, which applies to organizations that design primary packaging and packaging material. The aim here is to make sure that this also supports the food loss and waste reduction. This requirement was developed with the support of WPO, World Packaging Organization, for which FSSC is an associate member, and AIP, that is Australian Institute of Packaging, and is based on the aspects of the AIP to save food packaging design principles that have been globalized by WPO now. Now let's look at the requirement in a little bit more detail. Organizations that design primary packaging and packaging material. So not only category I organizations, but all organizations that design primary packaging or packaging material shall take the following principles into consideration when developing new products or making changes to the packaging as applicable. These principles should include effective contamination and protection of products from spoilage and damage throughout all steps of the supply chain. So it is not just doing a little bit stability study in your own facility, but you have to literally determine it. Preserve and extend the shelf of the product being packed, and also it should meet requirement for minimizing the food loss and waste. Now, clear communication to the consumers on how to handle, store, and prepare foods, and where any of the above mentioned principles are incorporated, it shall not negatively impact the food safety at the design stage of the packaging. So here is just a snapshot because we've given an example here. Under 2.5.13, G is based on Safe Food Packaging Design Criteria Guidelines developed by AIP. So in case you are interested, you can scan the QR code, download this. So one of the things is that not all the requirements from the AIP have been adopted into this thing. The selective ones, which have been added to the version 7. So it only covers certain of those principles and not all of them. So it's up to you if you wish to implement all the guidelines or if you just follow what's been expected in version 7. Now we're going to jump into the next part of the process. What's going to happen to the certification if you have existing one? What are the changes? So here is an example. Basically, so as a reminder of the audit duration is based on the DS, that is the number of days, plus the TFSSC, this is the time, and DS is based on audit duration calculation given in ISO 22003 Part 1, and is that what the duration would be from an ISO 22000 audit standpoint. So TFSSC is the duration that is added up on the top of the minimum duration DS, which is required from the ISO standard to make up to the FSSC audit duration, because there are more requirements than just the ISO 22000 requirements. Now, FSSC has changed these values in version 7 to further allow the flexibility in a minimum audit duration for smaller organizations. And it is for certain sectors while maintaining the integrity of the audit. Now let's take an example here. The TFSSC shall be calculated as displayed on this slide. So for half auditor days, that is 4 working hours when the company has less than 100 FTEs and maximum 2 HACCP studies. 1 auditor day, 8 working hours when the company has 100 to 249 FTEs and maximum 2 HACCP studies. Now, 1.5 auditor days, that is 12 working hours when the organization has more than 250 FTEs or more than 3 HACCP studies or more. Now, some organizations may therefore experience a reduction in audit duration for version 7 as compared to version 6. This change makes the minimum basic FSSC 22000 audit duration 1.5 to 2 days to 2.5 auditor days, depending on the TFSSC, and the DS is always minimum 1 auditor day. However, for categories like C, food manufacturing, and D, which is animal feed production, and K, which is biochemicals, the minimum audit duration shall never be less than 2 days in order to meet the GFSI benchmarking requirements. So here's the additional changes in part 3. You'll see that all these audit durations have been changed for organizations less than 20 FTE, maximum 2 HACCP studies. Further reductions are allowed. A minimum audit duration of 1.5 days for all audit types and subcategories. Remove the simple process and change from 1 to 2 HACCP studies. Okay. Still keep in mind that the CBs shall ensure that the audit duration allows for an effective audit based on audit objectives, scope, and specific audit needs, and covering the full FSSC 22000 requirements. And therefore, audit duration may be increased, and CBs can decide to not apply the exemption requirement depending on the complexity, scope, and specific audit needs. The audit durations calculated are the minimum durations, and CBs can increase them where the need arises to meet the audit objectives to ensure an effective and robust audit is delivered. Now, here is about remote audits. Okay. We're going to take about another 5 to 7 minutes. We are almost at the close. I know it's a long session, but since we are trying to go through the details, so in relation to the full remote audits, where the requirement of the full remote audit addendums are met, full remote audit may be considered as a result of serious events. That these requirements have been updated and included, that it is only allowed to conduct 2 consecutive full remote audits at an organization. Thereafter, an on-site audit is required. This is to ensure integrity of the certification. Now then, with regard to audit duration for off-site manufacturing, processing, or service activities, there is now only one option for audit duration calculation, except in the case of campus-style setup. And all these details have been given in the guidance document. Now let's look at the update in more detail. So while off-site manufacturing processes or service activities take place, the audit duration of satellite site shall be calculated separately from the main site, in which case 50% of audit time reduction of DS, that is the ISO requirement, may be applied when calculating the duration of the satellite site, and TFSSC applies on top of the calculated DS. I think for more clarity, you should get in touch with your certification body, get an explanation, and also I would suggest that renew your contracts, because this is going to be having impact in terms of the number of audit days, time, and the duration of the audit. And for the entire setup to be used to calculate audit duration is specified in clause 4.3 part 3 of the FSSC version 7 scheme. So now let's look at multi-site certification for subcategories. This is regarding multi-site certification, as mentioned earlier, B3 for pre-process handling of plant products. For example, if you have a pack house, it is now eligible for multi-site certification where the relevant requirements are met. Okay. There's also that when we also certified how to calculate the central function audit duration. However, the intent has not changed, and we also clarified the audit reporting requirements for multi-site organizations in the scheme document. Lastly, in relation to the unannounced audits, it is now mandatory to agree to the blackout days in advance between the certification bodies and certified organizations, whereas previously it was recommendation. And now we are also clarified that how to proceed in case the site is not operational at all when the auditor arrives on the unannounced audit date. That concludes the brief presentation to the main changes. However, we'll highly recommend you that you review the full main change document published on our website. Now we are going to look at your upgradation process. Okay. So you can see the timeline here. So the V7 of FSSC 200,000 scheme was published on May 1st, including main changes versions, and there is a 12-month transition now window for allow organizations and CBs to prepare for the new version. Okay, so you have sufficient time given to do this transition. And in between, there will be more webinars, there will be more documents issued as guidance documents going forward in next couple of months, which will help you in the implementation process. Now, the upgrade process document outlines the requirements for transition process, including timelines and upgrade process. So requirements for certification, accreditation bodies, audits, including audit durations, contract certificates, as well as licensing and accreditation. Now, the upgrade process, V7, is very similar to the V6. Audits against 22,000 version 6 are only allowed to be delivered up to 30th April 2027. That means after that date, you will have to transition to the V7 as upgrade audits against 22,000 scheme. V7 shall be conducted from 1st May 27 until 30th April 28. So these are very important dates. You get 1 year for preparation, 1 year to get certified to the next scheme, basically. So there is enough time given in this process. All upgrade audit packs and version 7 certificates are required to be uploaded to the FSSC assurance platform by the CBs within 2 months of the last day of the V7 upgrade audit. So that means for all the CBs, they shall have completed V7 upgrade for all their certified organizations no later than 30th June 2028. Okay, and all remaining V6 certificates which do not transition to version 7 will be set to withdrawn in the assurance platform after 30th June 2028. Now, make sure that you communicate these dates with your management team. And once that date passes on 30th June, and if you're not upgraded from V6 to V7, your certificate will not be visible on the FSSC 22,000 public register site for certified organizations on their listing. So it is important that audit duration calculations for all certifiers should be reviewed in line with the new audit calculations. CBs shall either issue a new contract to V7 to the certified organization or a V7 addendum to the existing V6 contract, taking into account the audit duration as a part of V7. Now, the audit duration requirements as a part of V7, version 7, shall be applied for all V7 audits from 1st May 2027. For an example, if organization is undergoing an upgrade audit during a surveillance audit, the CB shall calculate the surveillance audit duration as per the new V7 scheme requirements. No additional increase in audit duration for the upgrade audit is specified by the foundation. However, the CB can define an increase where deemed necessary to comply the regulation. So I'm sure that we do not have the Bhasha as this thing, but I think certain countries there is a requirement for translation. So in case you speak any of this Chinese, Japanese, Portuguese, Spanish, and Turkish, you will be able to download the translated documents from the FSSC website. With that, I would say that we are open for the Q&A session. And we'll take few questions here. I know it's been a long session and the document has been very elaborative. You are going to get the full copy of the presentation from the SAFF team. If I'm not able to answer any of those questions, please send all these questions to the SAFF team. Please collate all of them and send it to me. I'll try and answer them and send it back to you. Soon there will be frequently asked questions uploaded on the FSSC site. What I would say is that download the documents, get familiarized with it, and I think we will have another session later, maybe 2 to 3 months from now, which will provide you certain more details as the additional guidance documents get published, and there would be more clarifications required, I'm sure. So let's go through the few questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Darshane, for such a comprehensive and valuable presentations. We will now continue with the discussions and Q&A sessions. So I will address maybe 2 questions for these sessions because the time is limited. For the first questions that come from the chat is, for conducting internal audit, is it mandatory to have version 7 LA or IA certified team to conduct the IA, or can we have the LA as per version 6 and perform version 1, version 7 IA?
It's a very good question. I think everybody is going to go through upgrade. All the training organizations will also start providing accredited training in terms of internal auditor training, as well as whatever is required. So I think if you are in the process of upgrade, why not take a step forward and use the next requirements so that you can be prepared earlier. Okay. But in case you have an audit in next couple of months, which is going on, you still can continue to use the V6 as a base. And that's the reason the entire 1 year is given to you for preparation.
Okay, thank you, sir, for the answers. Next questions is newly certified organizations able to obtain version 7 by this year before 1 May 2027, or do they need to obtain version 6 first?
I think if they are ready, they should go ahead and obtain a version 6.
Okay, so maybe one more questions. For an internal lab that does testing on raw materials such as sand for raw material release in the glass packaging process would have to comply to ISO 17025.
If it is a critical food safety issue, so if you read it carefully, if the sand is a part of the contamination which is bringing into the glass, which can get transferred into other things, so you'll have to define at that stage based on the HACCP principles that what are the things which are going to impact your packaging uh, based on the migration studies required and all those things, and then decide that. So there's no point in jumping saying that whether the sand is required to be tested as per ISO 200,000. So there could be other things where the contaminant could be coming from other parts. But very interesting question.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Darshane, for the discussions, and thank you for the fruitful discussions and for all the great questions from our participants. But sadly, we cannot address all of the questions since the limited of time. So next, we're going to proceed to the next agenda. So maybe Mr. Darshane, please allow me to share screen on the previous presentation
Yes, so let
slides.
me stop sharing so you can take
Okay.
over.
Okay, thank you so much. Before we close, we would also like to invite you to stay connected with SAFF Solution through our social media and community channels. If you or your organizations require training or consultations related to the upgrade to FSSC 22000 version 7, please feel free to contact SAFF Solutions for further information and professional support. Please feel free to follow and connect with us to get the latest updates on our upcoming programs and initiatives. I am Kiran, your moderator, wishing you continued success and good health. Thank you for your kind attention and see you at the next SAFF Solutions event. Terima kasih dan wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.